mean, back in 2004, when The Apprentice premiered, we watched a very sharp, intelligent, articulate Donald Trump put on the show for the world. What we're watching is Donald Trump in complete and total mental decline. He can't finish a thought, a sentence. He can't even conceptualize simple policy issues. And so we should be very concerned about his mental state as he leads this country.
Well, what do you think? What do you think about this economic? He spent enormous amount of Treasury power with this tax cut, and apparently it's going to fizzle out like a pretty cheap fireworks.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's not going to get the economy on a big roll.
And it's the thing that worries him the most, because he has hinged his whole re-election campaign on the economy, and we're seeing the declines, we're seeing the indicators, and we're seeing him unravel, because he knows if there's an economic downturn, then he more than likely will not be re-elected.
Let me talk about the transition where you were, J.D. And, you know, he picked all these people like the first pancakes. They're all disasters. You know, the first pancake is always a disaster. I don't know if you don't cook breakfast, but most people know what I'm talking about. You look like I'm crazy, but that's how people judge. It seems like every first appointment was a disaster. They didn't click with him. They weren't the personalities. And then after a year or two, he finds somebody else. What was the transition like in that regard? Just picking the wrong people everywhere?
Well, I think there were some successes, actually, but they weren't his. Like the rest of his administration, I think he had some great picks on Vice Chairman Quarles for the Fed, or, you know, you're looking at most of the original Federal Reserve nominees in my policy area.
But he hates them.
But that was all Pence on regulatory appointments, just like success with tax reform was Paul Ryan's. Judges that I love will agree to disagree. That was McConnell's victory, not his. So the successes have been other leaders, and the flaws have been his. I mean, I won't pretend to diagnose this man who's deeply flawed on his best day, but we should try to diagnose what's going on with the country here that they would vote for this man.
Did you watch last night?
I did.
Boy, is he thinking, or is this some kind of weird sort of peripatetic reaction, electric kind of mind go, what else can I think about at this second? What else has come to mind?
He's stuck in reruns. If you think about him as a TV performer, he is stuck in rerun, and he can't get out. It's really difficult
Well, he's on
to watch.
Hillary. He can't get off Hillary. Anyway, President Trump has a history of making bizarre and somewhat confusing comments. Let's take a look.
In June of 1775, the Continental Congress created a unified army out of the revolutionary forces encamped around Boston and New York. Our army manned the airports. It ran the ramparts. It took over the airports. It did everything it had to do.
Frederick Douglass is an example of somebody who's done an amazing job and is being recognized more and more, I notice.
I mean, had Andrew Jackson been a little bit later, you wouldn't have had the Civil War. He was a very tough person, but he had a big heart, and he was really angry that he saw what was happening with regard to the Civil War. He said, there's no reason for this.
You guys know what this represents? Well, maybe it's the calm before the storm.
What's the storming?
Could be the calm before the storm.
You know, Anthony, I think he took history at Wharton. They don't teach history at Wharton, which explains why he doesn't know any history. What do you make about the airports back during this American Revolution? They were probably not that busy, since there was no airplanes.
You know, look, I'm not here to just perpetually bash him. I mean, I would give him a pass on that, because he probably has a hard time reading the prompter, and so I'll give him the pass on that. But what I won't give him a pass on is drawing the historical context to policy. And what I won't give him the pass on is the demagoguery. And so if you really understood history and leadership and what happens to demagogues, Chris, they flame out. And our last big-time demagogue was Joe McCarthy. And so this thing is going to arc and burn brightly, and then all of a sudden it's going to bristle and flame out. And then people around him, when the spell breaks, the people around him will be like, wait, what were we doing? And so you know, Omarosa and I were trying to help them. There were many other people in there who were trying to help them. Omarosa and I are willing to speak out about it. There are people behind the scenes. I talked to many of them over the last 4 or 5 days that are getting ready. And again, we have to make this known for the sake of the American people. They have to see it for exactly what it is. Then they themselves can make that assessment. That's what makes a democracy very strong, Chris.